What is the bravest thing you ever did that you never told anyone about? I used to think bravery was loud. I thought it was storming into a burning building or standing on a stage and yelling my truth until people listened. I read books about heroes, and I measured myself against those moments. I wanted that kind of picture to hang on my wall, perfect and undeniable. I wanted a single night or a single shout that would make everything make sense. Then one winter I left. It was not dramatic. There was no packed car at midnight, no slam of doors. There was a coffee cup half full on the counter, a pile of homework where my kid had left his backpack, a plant by the window that I had forgotten to water. I left in pieces. I left in small decisions that stacked up until there was no choice left but to move. I remember the day I decided for the first time that my safety mattered. I was making lunch and my hands were shaking. I had learned to pretend. I had learned to laugh when he joked about my nerve endings, to swallow the sharp little truths until they sat heavy. I told myself I was protecting the kids, that staying meant security. It sounded noble in my head. It was a lie I told every time I tied my shoes and left the house. The hardest part was the quiet. Telling myself that I could do felt easy when I was alone in the car. Saying it out loud to my own voice was something else. I called a friend who was awake and said, "I think I have to go." She asked where. I said anywhere. She said go to my place. I folded myself into the back seat like a paper plane and let someone else steer for once. Leaving was not one thing. It was shifting lines on a calendar, sending an email, throwing one sweater into a bag. It was taking my son to school and saying nothing about where we would stay. It was lying to a neighbor who asked why I looked tired, because the truth felt like an exposure I wasn't ready for. It was nights on the couch, counting breaths until morning, convincing myself that I would not go back. The voice that had told me I was nothing kept whispering, so I learned to answer back with small facts. I am here. I am safe. I am breathing. The real test came the week after when I had to tell him I was leaving. There was no yelling. There was a long, tired silence, and then a question about who would get the dog. He met my eyes, and for the first time I saw the confusion, the shock and the hurt, but also a relief I could not yet name. My son watched quietly. I had rehearsed speeches in my head and thrown them away. Instead I said, I am staying. I am scared, but I am staying. We will find a way. The word scared made everything more honest. It broke something ugly open. People expect bravery to be bright and fast. What I learned is that the quiet kinds are harder. It took months to find an apartment that did not feel like punishment. It took months to figure out how to pay rent and how to hold my son when he cried because he missed a bedtime story. I learned how to say no to people who wanted me to go back. I answered the phone and let it ring when I needed to breathe. I borrowed courage the way you borrow money, little by little, from friends and strangers who became anchors. Now, years later, I am not the person who believed in fireworks. I still watch movies and feel a little jealous of those one-moment heroes, but I also know the truth. Courage is getting up when your knees want to fold. Courage is packing a bag in the dark and walking out with a sleeping child who is unaware of the stakes. Courage is telling your own story to someone who will listen and letting them hold it steady with you. I do not say this lightly. The nights were long and some mornings still are. I do not tell this story to be seen as brave. I tell it because the small parts mattered. They built a life that is quieter and more honest. I learned that courage is not a headline. It is the steady work of being kinder to yourself, even when it feels unsafe. And sometimes the bravest thing you do is simply decide, in a voice that trembles, that you deserve a chance to live differently. If you like this video, then follow us for more.